Okay, well, welcome to our event tonight. That are here live, and those of you that are joining us via Zoom, we appreciate that, and we pray it'll be an opportunity for you to learn some new things about to just take another important step down the road to helping provide the kind of direction and guidance that we really want to for the sake of their future and the future that God has planned for them. So, with that in mind, let's begin with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together tonight, and we thank you, God, for many situations in which we're put to the test. God, we know that in so many circumstances we come through those situations and find ourselves wanting, and yet we know that because of that we have your grace and direction to continue to cleanse us and strengthen us and build us up in you, Lord. As we take a look at this important part of the lives of these students and these next steps that they face, let this be a learning opportunity, one in which they're encouraged and grow an understanding of who it is that you've created them to be, so that through that they can see the plan that you have for their life and see the gifts that you've given them and the passions that they have, and begin to get a glimpse of how they can use those to make the difference in the world that you've called them to make. Lord, may this be an opportunity for encouragement and understanding, and an opportunity for us to encourage these young people down the path that you've laid out for them. Bless us, God, this night to these ends. In your name, amen. So we're starting here talking about some of our test results. We well, test that they, and our purpose here is really to begin to put together a more clear picture of people and the gifts and the talents and abilities that they have, and from that be able to provide direction as to what God has in store for them, what it is that their calling is in life, and where that can take them. So from that, being able to understand just what they mean for us, and what we can do to take advantage of this information going further. So let's talk about. Obviously, our intent is to use this experience to not only grow in our ability to be prepared for college, but also to grow an understanding of ourselves to be involved with in terms of career planning and so on as well. So we're going to take a look at just. Let me mention, obviously, I've got paper score for all your students here at school, and for those of you that aren't, pick them up and so on. Stop in the guidance office and pick those up. Time you're on this year to for them. But just to give you an idea about what that looks like, this recording here will be posted, and the PowerPoint that I'm showing you will be posted on Counselor's Corner. So you'll be able to access that at any time you want to, and you'll be able to refer to it again as you review your own report. First of all, the main that you see for both reading, writing, the SAT, or in this case, the pre-SAT. The scoring is similar to in this case, you'll see then the next indicates that the student got a 430 score on the reading and writing, and a 530 score on the math. And so the little numbers there underneath that talks about the percentile scores, and that really is one of the things that's probably more really get a grasp in terms of what it means. And on the left, and to be honest, on my screen, I'm having a hard time deciphering those small numbers because it's on the projector here and to read. But the percentile means out of 100 students that took this test, how many did I outscore? And so if that's a number in the mid 30s, example, that means I'm at the low end of average, actually, because average would be, in terms of percentile, runs from 35 to 65. As we keep in mind that if we're familiar with that bell curve idea, there's that big bubble in the middle where most of us, a percentile between 35 and 65 would be considered average. The 30s would be the low end of average. The 60s would be the high end of average. Anything above that would be above average, and then high average and low. But that's in a nutshell, that's what those two scores refer to. Now, as you look further down the page, you'll see there's a separation of the reading and writing. And you have the standardized standard score for the math on the right. Again, I really want to spend some time digging into what those refer to, but for the most part, PSAT runs from 320 to 15. The math score and then the reading writing are separated. Again, the average is a fairly broad in the middle. And I don't encourage it below average or my, you know, here to learn. What are my strengths? What are the things I need to work on? And how can I take advantage of these strengths and capitalize? The page here again, you'll see there's underneath the percentiles, there's a line that has red, yellow, and green on it. The red means you're below the benchmark, the yellow, and the green means you're for college readiness. A student has a significant chance, a more than average chance of getting an A, B kind of a score in level math class or the freshman level reading writing class in college. So that's kind of the National Merit Scholarship Program is one of the pages here. It talks about that. It's a national program. A lot of foundations that have scholarship funding have some sort of criteria that they're going to use to determine who receives that funding. And part of that criteria is frequently a student score on the PSAT. So that's an NMS part of the title that's on your test sheet. There's our scholarship program. It's a very challenging program. There's a team this year group. They will recognize in some fashion. Will be commended students. Some will be semifinalists, and then some will be for student scholarships and some of those national foundations, national corporations, that sort of thing. Obviously, is all specific to that individual foundation, but this test there, if there's some sort of eligibility there, notified as a school, and we'll get a little certificate if your student has earned that recognition, and that'll be a fun thing for us to celebrate and share sometime later in the year in chapel and all sorts of things. Some companies and some companies here in our area do have use the student's national merits qualifying score as a determiner for their own corporate scholarship programs. So if your company does have that that sort of a program, I would encourage you, HR office or whoever would handle the criteria would be for the qualifying NMSQT scores and so on. So feel free to be in touch. There's also a page on the paper handout. The circles and checks. answer and the answer that the student placed, as well. It gives them the chance to sit down with the answer sheet, determine, what was it that confused them on the questions that they missed? What was it? Answer have been. I encourage kids to go through these questions because questions that are on a test like this obviously are in many cases, different than a question on a typical English test or social studies test or something like that. And so just beginning to develop more familiarity with the type of questioning that's used on this kind of a test can be one of the most helpful things for. So that's why I encourage them to, go through this and figure out why they missed what they missed and just about how they understood the question that really doesn't have anything to do with whether or not to do the information. They just misunderstood the question or misinterpreted in some kind of fashion. And that can be a significant issue that happens frequently, obviously, in both areas, but even more so in the math. That sometimes is an issue for folks. So helpful information for you to take a look at. Okay, so next steps. First of all, one of the things that I continue to talk about with kids whenever we talk about college testing and that sort of thing is ACT is pretty blunt about it in their program. They say, if you're on things for you to do, take hard classes and do your homework. That's essentially the whole secret in a nutshell. And so here, the same kind of recommendation: continue to take challenging courses. Now, there is a way, and we're going to talk about it as we go through the rest of this presentation here, how you can connect with Khan Academy and use that as a test prep kind of tutoring tool. And what we can actually do is link the score here from your PSAT to Khan Academy so they can set up a practice plan that will be specific to whatever questions and the type of question that you missed and that sort of thing. So it's very much a prescriptive type of test prep program as opposed to other programs where you have a book and that's helpful, but you're just going through the same questions that everybody else looks at reading the book, and it might not be the questions that you need. These Academy will enable this to really provide a prescribed component for you in terms of your test prep. Let me mention as well, and I don't know if we're going to get time to get to it tonight, but on Counselor's Corner, we have a section on testing and test prep, career planning, that sort of thing. So there are some tools on there too. The Illinois Career Information System has a complete test prep and SAT. It's actually the Peterson's program. They've been doing test prep for probably 50 years or so. And it's something that the school pays for and provides for your students. So it's free to them. There's multiple sample tests on there that they can take that are timed, that are, retired ACT questions, SAT questions, that kind of thing. And then from some preliminary testing, they too will prescribe then a set of questions for your student to work through as a part of like a tutoring test prep. So there's a lot of opportunities there for kids to really get some serious practice work in. And the one thing that I'll mention to them is that the idea of doing test prep is not rocket science. I mean, it's the thing that makes it work is not the particular book that you use or the particular use. Although I think this one is, this one and the Peterson's online are particularly beneficial. But the issue is, are you spending time on it to make it worthwhile and to really accomplish something? Some of the local vendors, Huntington and places like that, have all sorts of information they put out about how much they can improve your student's test score. And I don't doubt it at all. I don't question that. I'm sure they have good data on that sort of thing. The value of the system has much less to do with the system and more to do with their system works because you're going to be there for X number of hours a week, Saturday mornings, etc., working with a tutor, and then X number of hours of work you're going to need to do during the week after that sort of thing. And if your parents are paying $3,000 or $4,000 for that, which is typically the going rate, they're going to make sure that you're getting that work done, and they're going to make sure you're there on Saturday morning for your 3-4 hours. So spent, 50 plus hours prepping for this test. Well, it's not hard to figure out that if you spend 50 hours getting ready for a test, your score will probably go up. So that's the secret, take hard classes, do your homework, spend a significant amount of time in test prep. And test prep is essentially helping you review what you've learned in your high school classes already that is just kind of, falling off the back burner there a little bit. It brings it back to the forefront. So it's easier for you to recall when you need. But for any test, your score will go up of this as well. So set up a practice plan, stick to it, commit some time to it, register for the SAT. Obviously, this is where these folks make money. So that's what they're going to advertise. We're going to talk about a little bit later. Other resources, like we mentioned, that are available to us on our school website. Now, that being said, when you get your answer sheet, you will find, or your score sheet, you will find on the front of it, you can find online access to your test scores as well and your online account. And so we're going to go through this, but I'm going to sheet, and you're working on this at home. You can sit down and look through this PowerPoint if you need some reminders about how do I get into this and what do I find and what does this mean to me. PowerPoint will be there to help provide you some direction on that. So we're going to kind of cruise through it here kind of quick. They just give you some information about accessing your score online. Now, I don't think the sign-in quite looked like that anymore, but College Board changed the layout of how some of this looks, but they didn't provide me with the new PowerPoint this year. This is the newest that they have. So it's going to look a little different, but you sign in. On your answer sheet that you'll pick up that will tie you right directly to your answers and your information from your test. They'll start showing you what your results are, and there's also an opportunity there to see other tests that you've taken before. In this example, they show not only the PSAT but the PSAT 10 that we don't give here. So just so you're familiar with, that's why it's showing up on the PowerPoint. But this will enable you to take a look at your PSAT scores in much more detail and start with the same general score that we talked about before. The reading and the math and the other subscores below that. A little bit more detail in terms of where you were in your score on this. And here's our breakdown about where we're at in terms of meeting our benchmarks for the SAT. So it gives you an idea of what it means to be, in need of strengthening skills, approaching the benchmark, meeting or exceeding the benchmark, et cetera. And you get into some more breakdown of how did I do on the specific subscores in math and what areas of math do I need to work on. They do give you some analysis of a science score, a history social studies score. Now, there really is not a science section. There's not a social studies section on the SAT. What they do is they take some of the math problems that could be kind of science related, and they take some of the English, the reading and writing components that could be related to other topics like social studies, and kind of use those to derive a score. It can be somewhat helpful. It's a little bit less accurate, the basic scores that you get, but it's something else for you to consider as you're taking a look and comparing this particularly to the ACT, which science and reading and English and math and so on. Again, you got your information on your NMSQT score. They have a skills insight component that you can reach online that they'll talk a little bit about here that gives you some more detail on particular questions that you missed, the type of skills that you might want to beef up on a little bit. So you got some specifics of what sort of look into a little bit more thoroughly. This, I think, is probably one of of taking a look at what's available to here online is this opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into some of those areas that you on a little bit more thoroughly. So here gives you again, you can go into each individual question, take a look at the areas, why it was made, try to figure out each of the particular distractors. Okay, so the correct answer out of the A, B, C, D, E is the correct answer. The other answers are considered distractors. It'll tell you exactly why they use this distractor and what it is that might have kind of got you caught off base there. That can be helpful for you as you kind of figure out how to read these kind of questions again in the future. You'll a little bit easier and recognize that's not the correct answer. So you can look at the questions again and level of difficulty, and that might be helpful for you as you review some things. So all of those are various tools that are available if you take a look at your score results online. One of the other things that's available to us here as a result of taking this test is what we call AP Potential. So what they've done here is they've taken your students' results on the PSAT and said, based on how we see your student doing in math and reading and language and writing and sub scores that we can derive in science and social studies, there might be some AP courses or some AP tests that would be helpful for your student to take. Now, keep in mind, there's the only way you get the credit is by taking and successfully scoring high enough on the test. I wouldn't say there's no benefit to take an AP class, but you don't get the college credit for taking the AP class. It only comes if you get a certain score on the test. What they're saying here is, okay, here's some areas which your students done pretty well, and they really should be taking a look at taking AP tests in this category. Now, we do offer AP testing here, and your students can take any AP test that they would like to here, and we offer them every year. We have quite a variety of tests we give every year. So thing that you can also recognize, though, is that they're making a recommendation to here that you should be taking the AP government test. That probably also means that essentially you should be taking the dual credit government class. And if they're saying the same thing about economics, same thing there. If they're saying the same thing about literature, then you should be looking at doing the dual credit English class and that sort of thing. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we move further tonight. But for students scored high enough to get a recommendation on AP Potential, that's something that we have here in their answer packet when they pick that up. So that's to be available for you and encourage you. Idea of here's some things at kind of ramping up our schedule of classes that we're taking and so on. There's some more information here that's available to you as you take a look at their site, satpractice.org. That enables you to, again, connect directly with Khan Academy and put together a specific plan that works for you in terms of the things that you need to work on for improvement in your particular test scores and your areas that you need a little bit of improvement in. It talks about some more details of that here. So I'll just leave these up. We're going to kind of cruise through it because it gets into the details of how you link the accounts. Again, this is going to be available to you on the site, so you can look at it when you want to down the road. We don't need to talk about that now. You'll just be able to look at it and access that when you set up that Khan Academy account. Here's some information about registering for the SAT. They give you information about how to do that. And we'll talk about testing a little bit more in general terms a little bit later. Here we've got some more information about other SAT resources that they have available to prepare for the future. The big future topic that you see over there on the left, it's into some more tools that are available for doing college searches, and gives some nice comparison tools, some good search tools for, what do I want, a large school, small school, rural, urban, thinking about that I want the college to specialize in. Again, we've also got a program online on our site that students can use for that through the Illinois Career Information System. And we'll be talking about a little bit more as we meet again in March for the junior college planning night. But this is the big look at there. It has some information about scholarships and financial aid. The career find references here is a tool that you can use that kind of, okay, so what sort of things were you good at? How did your scores go? And what are some things that you're interested in? And that kind of tools you can use to consider. We're going to talk about the career search process a little bit more with the ASVAB, because I think they've got some really good tools that particular. Here's some details about a big future. Again, you can search that down later on as you have opportunity and use that to help get into some ideas about colleges that you're interested in. Let me just mention quickly, we're going to pick up this again in March when we meet. This is the season for making some serious decisions about career and college major and that sort of thing, because the thing that I continue to tell juniors, keep in mind, back to school in August of your senior year, your college search process is over. And that usually kind of freaks them out a little bit because they're thinking, well, yeah, but I'm still just a junior. I'm not ready for that. Well, the reality is college applications open in September, and some of them close in October and November. At least their preliminary stages. And so one of the things I mentioned is I was talking with freshmen. Marquette University, great school, Milwaukee, 2,000 freshmen a year. That's how much room they have. By December, they're going to have 16,000 applications. So if you're coming in your senior year thinking that, okay, I'm going to worry about doing my college apps over Christmas, yeah, don't bother. I mean, sure, there's some schools you can get into, in February and March, but they might not be the school that's really best for you, and it might not be the one you're really interested in. You need to come ready to select that school in August of your senior year and begin to, we'll talk about that process a little bit more in March, but give you a heads up. That's why we're talking about this stuff in detail now, because this is the time to really get serious about what kind of career do I want to start looking at. The student search, basically a way that you can share your scores with college, universities, and scholarship organizations. And a lot of your kids did opt into that when they filled out the form. So if you start to pick up, don't blame me. They have the choice to say no. So just putting that out there. But it is a helpful service to just start getting some information from schools, and for schools that do have a particular interest in your student scores to be able to connect and so on. Here's some additional tools that I kind of threw in here. This is a YouTube video that kind of goes through how to understand your PSAT scores. It's about a 2-3 minute long video. Just if you need a little bit of reminder on that, you can find that, and it'll walk you through the steps that we just talked about. From here, I want to go in and kind of results that are available for you as well. So I don't have a graphic on this because they didn't provide me with one, but the ASVAB scores are fairly easy to figure out. There's one page format. It lists out all the different and it gives a score of how they ranged and everything, and it deals with traditional categories such as math and science and English and that sort of thing, but it also gets into a lot of others relating to mechanics and other type of vocations that I think is helpful for a lot of our kids that want to see, okay, I'm not, my English and basic math is not my strength, but there's other strengths that I do have. So what are they? This is a tool that really helps give kids a broader picture of themselves and what their abilities are. And sometimes there's some young ladies that are particularly surprised by the fact that they're much more mechanically inclined than they thought they were. And seeing ASVAB scores have realized, what, maybe I really do want to go into engineering. I thought that was just something that was kind of a quirk, but here's some results on a test that says, yeah, this is something that's probably a good thing for me to be. This is a video through just the basics of the ASVAB results, so I encourage you to take a look at that. There's some resources available as well, and there's some really good resources available as well for you at this site. Access to get into the account and start looking at the results and that sort of thing. We did have a brief session on this with your students last Friday, so they should be familiar with this. It should be recognizable to them as you're working on it. It's a tool that I think most all of them have set up an account for already. So some of this is redundant because they already did it, but in case they didn't, they weren't here that day, that sort of thing. It goes through the steps a little bit of setting up the account and logging in, and code is on their answer sheet. They all received a copy of their result sheet last week when we went through that. So that information is available to them. So set up the account. One of the tools that they have on there, obviously there's a button you can click. We'll break them down into a whole list of areas. Again, they'll show percentile scores. They'll show standard scores. So one of the things I mentioned about standard scores, as you take a look at those, standard scores, again, kind of are the scores along that bell curve. So anything from 35 to 65 is average. Anything from 50 to 65 is average and above average. And then you get, farther above average as you continue on up into the 75, 85, 95, 99%. There's some really interesting information on there, and they do break down the results of your score versus your gender versus the opposite gender, and then versus everybody that's taken this year, which is hundreds of thousands of kids. So it's some good data. They've also another tool on there called FYI, Find Your Interests. Now, the students went through that last week when we did the presentation kind of quickly. So I'm thinking most of them really took it pretty serious. It was good to see it. They were really kind of zeroed in on it and did a good job with that. That tool, your interest is simply that. It's an interest inventory. But what's helpful is they'll key together when they're done with that with this occupying interest inventory data, analyze it in conjunction with your test results, and then spit out a whole list of occupations that seem to be pretty well oriented towards your interests and your results on the testing. Now, none of that's going to be a perfect match, that sort of thing, and they're going to come back with all sorts of different options. Some of them are going to be more likely for you to be interested in and be better fit for you than others. But just the idea of kids finding another tool to use to take a look at something that says, you know what, this seems to be something you're interested in. This seems to be something that you're good at. If you put those interests together with something you're good at, this looks like a career that could really be of interest to you. And, I mentioned that for kids in context of again, how we see kids from a Christ-centered perspective, that, this is just how God made you. And when you take a look at how he wired you and how he gifted you to have certain interests and passions and abilities and that sort of thing, there is that place where your calling, your giftedness, your abilities are going to intersect with a need in this world. And where that intersects is going to be that really cool place where you're going to find yourself doing what you do because you love doing it. And it's not really a job because it's just naturally who you are. It's like what you're intended to be. And I give kids an example. When I was doing a summer job to get through college, make money for tuition and so on, I was working at a heavy moving company doing maintenance work and cleanup work and landscaping work and that sort of thing for the company and so on. Great people to work for. It was a nice job, a lot of respect. The only day I looked forward to getting out of bed was payday. It was Tuesday. And, Wednesday was awful because it was a long way till Tuesday. Monday wasn't so bad, but, it was just the only thing worth getting out of bed for was a payday. Because the only reason I had a job was so that I could make enough money so that I go back to college so that I never have to do that kind of job again, because that was just not me. Now, for other people, that absolutely is them. And that's cool. I take kids out to the careers fair that the trades council is here in Rockford, and I see kids get out there, get super excited about working with heavy equipment, which is what wasn't exciting to me at all. And we had a kid last year that is now working at area rectors, and he's just totally jazzed about doing that sort of thing. Okay, that's super. It's just we're different people and pursuing different things. But I mentioned to him too. You know what? I've been here almost 40 years. I still don't know when payday is. Yeah, I know it's the 15th and the end of the month and that sort of thing, but all of a sudden I get a beep on my phone and I look at it and it says I got paid that day. Oh, okay, that's cool. It's just, that's what you want to be thinking about when you're thinking about what is it that God's called me to do? What is that thing that I'm going to do that I'm just going to love doing it, and I'm going to want to do it for the rest of my life, and that's just going to be what fulfills me. So, the tool that I think would be really helpful in helping find that. So, and the reason why it's helpful is that it reaches into a broader range of skill areas than a typical ACT or SAT, and reaches into those parts of who kids are and what they're interested in that I think is pretty unique, connects it with an occupation and so on. So anyway, that's of we're going to be talking about relative to now a couple of other general things I want to talk about with testing, and the whole testing issue is different this year than ever before in some respects, and we're going to talk a little bit about testing in March, but not a whole lot. So this is where we're going to get into a little more detail about it. So now's the time to kind of think about that in particular. A lot of times kids will ask, okay, so what's stuff going on with test schools that are test optional? What does that mean? How does that work? And so it means that many schools, public and private universities both, have gone to the point of saying you don't have to turn in a test score. It's an option. Now, some schools have gone test blind, which means even if you turn in a test score, they're not going to look at it. Okay, so those are the two different terms. More schools are test optional. One of the reasons, and this is something that doesn't so much make the news because it really sounds cool that, oh, all of a sudden now this major university is now test optional. And so, you know, out having to take a test. And so a lot of schools have found they just get a lot more applications because they decide to go test optional. Well, I wonder why they decided to go test optional. You know, I mean, it's not rocket science. If a school gets more applications, they're probably going to get more students, and that's how they, you know, keep their bills paid and all that sort of thing. So nothing surprising about that. The one thing that doesn't come out just as quickly, though, is the fact that in many cases, they're not test optional when it comes to scholarships. Because if they're going to open up their checkbook to get a student there, they really want to be sure that that student is ready for that college experience. So look into the details, but most of those schools test optional for enrollment are not test optional for scholarships. So just kind of look out for that. The other thing that comes into place there is as we look at this thing about test optional is, okay, so if colleges are not looking at a test to determine if you as a student are going to be successful there, what are they looking at? Because they're going to be looking at something, because as we talked about before, you know, colleges are ranked, and one of the major things that impacts their rank is how many kids did I bring in when they were freshmen, and how many kids are going out the back door as graduates 4 years later. And if there's a big drop off in that number, and a lot of kids flunked out, or a lot of kids dropped out, or whatever, that's a major black mark on that school. So they are not going to want to bring in freshmen that they're not pretty confident have got what it takes to graduate 4 years later, because otherwise it's going to mess up their rating. Okay, so how are they going to determine who's ready and who's not? Obviously, it means the value of your GPA just went up by quite a bit. So if the only other thing they had to look at is your transcript, which includes what courses you took and what grades you got, your transcript means more than it ever did before. So take that really seriously, not only when you're doing your classes this year and making that decision of, okay, so am I going to rewrite that essay once more because it still just isn't all that great? No, I think I'm going to go hang out with my friends or go play on the phone for a while or whatever. You know, realize the decisions you're making, because that transcript, that grade means a whole lot more than it ever did before. So take that seriously. As you're doing that, then we're going to be talking a little bit about what our course selections are going to be for next year, because while your applications for college is going to be based on your 6th semester transcript, keep in mind that schools are going to be looking at your 7th semester transcript quickly as well. And in some cases, a lot of schools haven't made final decisions yet. And if that's the case, and sometimes they're waiting for that 7th semester transcript to see, okay, have you decided to start coasting your senior year or not? I can tell you stories about kids that got into U of I, their beginning of their senior year, and thought, okay, I've got it made, I got what I want, and I'm just going to enjoy my senior year now. Well, they enjoyed it maybe a little bit too much, because then in June, after we sent the 8th semester transcript, they got a letter from U of I that said, okay, maybe not. That's not exactly how you want to end your high school career. Okay, so take that seriously. What is on that transcript now means more than it ever did before. So be serious about that. Um, the first of all, before we go into further talking about the transcript, let me finish up one more thing about the testing. Because of the fact that there are some very legit purposes for kids to still be involved in testing, not only for the application process, but also for the scholarship process. The question also comes up, okay, should I do the ACT or the SAT? You know, the SAT all of a sudden has gotten a lot more popular in Illinois, and it's simply because SAT underbid ACT for the contract with the Illinois State Board of Education. There's absolutely nothing magical about that. There's nothing educationally sound about it. It's just the state of Illinois had a contract with ACT for years and years and years to provide a test for all of their graduates. And so when College Board underbid ACT, all of a sudden now everybody in Illinois is taking the SAT. That's the only reason why. They just got it cheaper. Now, the thing that I tell kids is you want to be thinking about is what test is the school you're interested in most familiar with? What are they most comfortable with? What are most of the students that are going to that school going to apply with? And for most of our kids, if you're going to school anywhere here in the Midwest, and that includes even in Illinois, but particularly anywhere in the Midwest outside of Illinois, the college is most likely much more familiar with ACT than they are SAT. SAT's territory has always been the East Coast and the West Coast. And ACT has pretty much had the Midwest and the rest of the country, essentially. So think about that in terms of what test you want to take. What is your school that you're interested in most familiar with? That's the test you should take. That's one important criteria. And that, I guess I would start with that one. The other one to think about is, you know, for some kids, there might be one test that works a little bit better for them than the others. Notice with SAT, there's only two scores. There's a language arts score, reading and writing, and there's a math score, and that's it. If math is not your game, and that's half your score on the SAT, you might want to think about the ACT, because in ACT, you've got the reading, you've got the language, you've got the science, and you've got the math. So that could make a difference for you. Now, some kids have told me they think the math's actually harder on the ACT, but yeah, I don't know. That's really hard to determine. But give that some serious thought. And I encourage kids, you know, if you're not sure ACT is working well for you, take the SAT and see. You know, it's going to cost you an extra $50 or something like that to take it again, and a couple hours on a Saturday morning. Okay, but you know, a couple of point difference in score, depending upon what test you're more comfortable with, which one works better for you, can not only be the difference between getting into the school you want to or not getting in, it can also make a significant difference in terms of the amount of scholarship that you get. Because a 26 versus a 28 on the ACT in a lot of schools, you're going to be talking a difference of $20,000+ over the course of 4 years. That's worth $50 on a Saturday morning, I think. So, you know, take that into account and you know, be willing to eat the extra $50 and see how it goes. And if it seems like, okay, yeah, maybe I started with the SAT and now I did the ACT and I think I like that better. Okay, well, take it another time or two and see how that goes. Typically, your score is going to go up because of two things. The second time you took it, you're just less nervous about it because you're familiar with it and you're comfortable with it, and it's likely to work better. The other thing is, if you take it 4 or 5 months later, you've got 4 or 5 more months of math under your belt and English under your belt and science under your belt. Yeah, your score is going to go up because you got 4 or 5 more months of learning under your belt. Now, that's assuming you're continuing to take some challenging classes, okay? Always encourage juniors to start with their testing in the spring of the junior year. So April, June, July, that's kind of like the key testing times for juniors to be jumping into that. You still will have time if you want to continue to do some testing, and you're kind of playing the cards in terms of which test is better and that sort of thing. You're still going to have some time in September, August, September, October to get tests completed before the November 1 application deadlines that is common for schools that have early app deadlines and that sort of thing. So you still got some time to do that in the fall. But I would say, you know, certainly be deliberate about that and kind of thinking through that schedule, because it's going to help you if you're, you know, if you're taking the test in April for the first time, and then you're getting a couple more months of you know, pre-calc under your belt, and then you're taking the test again in October, you got a couple months of calc under your belt. Yeah, that's going to make a difference. It just is. So so keep that in mind as you're thinking about what your test schedule is and what your plans are and all those sorts of things. Okay. I think okay, so that's the whole testing kind of a thing. If you have other questions about that, stop in and see me or email me and let me know. But that's typically my recommendations for people as they're thinking about, do I take a test or don't I? What test do I take? How do I take it? When do I take it? That sort of thing. And again, resources are available from what we've seen online here and what we have on the school counselor's corner page and that sort of thing for you to help improve that. The other thing that's important for us to talk about has to do with our course selection process. And I've got examples of the rec sheets for our folks that are here. For those of you that are at home, your kids are going to be bringing this on Friday. The recommendation of their teachers and the course selection process. So they should be to you as juniors Friday. This is on Friday for this kind of stuff. Course selection process is still important. Yeah, your junior year is key because your sixth semester is key. But the bottom line is there's a lot to be still working on our senior year. And I just, you know what, if you're paying full-time tuition, your kid should be taking a full-time schedule. Okay, you're going to be sending and realize colleges get a sixth semester transcript when your student applies. Now that they've applied, they're going to be looking for a seventh semester transcript. I've got to get them. I'm going to get an eighth semester transcript. Okay, so in the meantime, it's going to make a difference as to what classes are taking their senior year. And when I turn in an application, when I turn in information for kids on Common App, it asks, are their senior classes listed on their transcript? Because they're expecting to see that. They want to see it. If they don't see it on the transcript, it's on the transcript, believe me. As you take a look at those classes, then, we're still at that point where, okay, I'm in I'm in junior honors English. Yeah, it's going to take some work, but realize the benefit of getting that recommendation for senior honors English is 2 college credits, 2 college classes under your belt before you graduate high school. Okay, that's huge for a lot of reasons. First of all, keep in mind, everybody has to take senior English. If you've got the chance to do dual credit senior English, why not do that? Because now you get the college credit. Each one of those 3 credit hour classes represents about 150 hours of college level homework. So by taking the dual credit English, that's 300 hours of college level homework you don't have to do. That's 6 hours of college credit you don't have to pay for. It's only going to cost you about, I don't know, a couple $100 if you do it here. It's going to cost you like 5, 6, 7,000 if you do it in college. Okay, that's kind of a no-brainer. The other thing though that's really key and that you need to keep in mind is, wouldn't you rather be sending out a transcript that says that you're already taking college level English class? Because when that school is making determinations about scholarships, and keep this in mind, we do our college applications and get that stuff in. And colleges will be taking a look at your FAFSA at that time, and many times will come back with a financial aid package in October, November, December. However, it's not unusual for other scholarship opportunities to still be available in the spring. The spring is the more typical scholarship season. It's like senior year in the fall is application season. Senior year after Christmas is scholarship season. So, the Community Foundation here in Northern Illinois, they're getting ramped up now, and those applications are going in, and kids are applying for those scholarships, and that money out there is a big mean something to those people that are reviewing those applications that you're already taking college level classes. Yeah, because I mean, those people that are in that Northern Illinois Community Foundation, let's face it, they're Swedes. They're tight with their money. They're not going to be giving their money to kids that aren't taking hard classes. And when they see that you're already taking college level classes and no offense, Swedes, okay, I hope there aren't any out there that are throwing things at me now. Obviously, any scholarship granting organization wants to be frugal with their money. They don't want to invest money in kids that they don't think have a good chance of being. Oh yeah, but if they see that you've already got college level coursework on your transcript, they're not going to be too worried about how you're going to do in college because you're already, quote, in college. and you're already proving yourself. So that's why, yeah, when you're getting this rec sheet, I know that some of you are going to be thinking, I've already got my 3 years of math in, I already got my 3 years of science in, I don't really want to be taking a whole lot more of that because it's a lot of work. Well, I'm sorry, but you're not done yet. And so, don't quit now. As you take a look at the rec sheet, there's some good math classes on there. Stats and calc are great courses, depending upon what kind of career you want to go into. Either one of them are gonna really take you some good places. We've got a phenomenal science opportunity. I mean, bio 2, chem 2, anatomy, physiology, they're all dual credit. If you're going into a pre-med thing, yeah, you might not get credit for them because those classes are part of your major. But you know what? You're going to be taking anatomy phys again. And believe me, if you've gone through it once with Mr. Freudenberg, the second time you're going through it is going to be a piece of cake. And in a pre-med program, you're not going to have a lot of classes that are a piece of cake. So this will be one way to get. So don't back out on those opportunities and those experiences if you can take advantage of, that'll really move you forward. And again, it's gonna impress scholarship review committees and that sort of thing to have that kind of stuff on there. When you throw that together with what you can do in terms of government econ and psych soc and foreign language, it gets really frustrating senior year. I have a lot of kids that come in and drop out of their 5th or 6th year of foreign language, and I think, man, you guys just spent 4 or 5 years working on this. You're getting to the point where it's really going to pay off for you now, because if you're going through a 6th year or 5th year of foreign language, you're knocking out 2, 3, in some cases even 4 college level classes. So that means you could go to college, get your degree in accounting, and end up with a minor in your foreign language after only taking 2 or 3 classes. Now you got 2 degrees. And believe me, if you're going to work for an international accounting firm, you're going to be at the top of that pile if you've got a minor in a foreign language. That's just reality, because not that many people do that. So, I encourage you to stick with that, because that stuff's going to pay off for you big time as you get further down the road. So this is the kind of stuff that's going to be coming home. I'm talking about it now, thinking about it, and you'll hopefully have some good discussion with your students about it as they stuff home Friday night, and we'll make some good decisions about the classes for next year. The idea is, obviously, we encourage kids to sign up for a full schedule of 7 classes in study hall. Keep in mind that as seniors, they're again going to have Christian service. So one of those semesters, they're only going to have religion class 1 day a week and study hall the other 4 days a week. So if they've already got 1 study hall, there's another semester they're going to have essentially 2 study halls a day, and so on. So think about those sorts of things. The other thing I'll say is, we certainly encourage kids to continue to get further along in the engineering program. That's a great way to get a leg up on a future career too. Some colleges offer dual credit. If you've gone through the Project Lead the Way program, like our students have, that's something worth checking into when you start talking to your schools. Accounting, entrepreneurship, if you're interested in business, that's a great thing to have on your transcript too, because that's going to give you a leg up in terms of the scholarship and the college application process. Psych soc are just great because virtually all colleges expect something like that as a part of the gen ed requirement. So now you've got that covered already before you get there. If you do the dual credit, if you don't, you do the regular credit. You got a leg up because you took the class once already, and that's going to be great for you. Again, I want to keep in front of people too that fine arts are a great way to get some college scholarships. Okay, art works a little bit different in terms of applying for art institutes and that sort of thing, but a lot of kids from our school end up with music scholarships, band, choir, orchestra, that sort of thing. And that can be some serious money, and you don't have to be a music major in college to do that. Colleges are desperate for kids that are good musicians because they want to have good music groups that they can troop around the country and show themselves off with, and they're finding it a tough time to get good musicians nowadays. So they're gonna want to get to place so that they can kind of make a name for themselves on the stage and concert hall and so on. So look for those opportunities as you're taking courses for next year as well. It's a great opportunity there for scholarship money. Okay, I think we're kind of wrapping up the topic here. We got a couple of folks here. I'll check and see if you have any questions of anything that we've talked about or any topics we should hit that have come up. take a quick look at the chat and see if there's anything on there that anybody has put in that would indicate there's some questions that you have for me to try to cover. Let's see. Oh, sorry to hear about the audio. I didn't know that was going bad. Okay. Any other questions that anybody has relative to anything we've talked about so far? Otherwise, feel free to be in touch. Contact me through email or have your students drop in and ask questions. Certainly glad to talk about anything else that would be helpful as we talk about the whole issue with testing and some of those aspects of getting ready for college. Again, in March, we're going to have another event that's going to deal specifically with finalizing the college search process, making the final college decisions, how we come up with different tiers of schools we want to look at that meet our needs and interests and that sort of thing, how we kind of filter out schools that are going to work well for us with some search engines and that kind of thing, as well as begin to take a look at some things we need to think about relative to the application process itself and timing and early application, early decisions, all those sorts of things. So that'll be coming up with our next meeting in March. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to share. Please feel free to have your students stop by and pick up the results and be in touch if you have any other questions. So have a great evening and thanks for joining us again.